A lot of folks have been talking about how underwhelming the Democrat response has been to Donald Trump and his idiot policies so far. The folks who have frankly been speaking the most have really been progressive media outlets and influencers who have been trying to do all they can to educate the folks on what's going on. One of the folks who's doing that is Brian Tyler Cohen. He joins us right now. Brian, glad to have you on the show, man. You know, it is amazing to me. I think about even just yesterday, the idiotic things that were said, the lies that were said, just the falsehoods, the lawlessness, and when you look at Democrats in the House, in the Senate, when you look at the DNC, when you look at all these other entities, it's sort of like when we don't know what to say or do. We just don't know. It is amazing how feckless they've been.
I think there's this overarching sentiment that, okay, Donald Trump won the last election, and so we have some mandate to now tack right or work together with Republicans, or that our messaging all has to be thrown out the window and we have to instead go completely in the opposite direction. I think that is a misread of the situation. I think that we are now already just a little over a week in an era of complete lawlessness and dysfunction and chaos, all of it purposeful, by the way. None of this is happening in a vacuum. This is all by design. And I think what we need right now, very clearly, and we're seeing this in the independent media space, but not much elsewhere beyond that, is people who are going to stand their ground, fight back, and actually react to this moment with the urgency that it deserves.
But what's also crazy about that, these folks, they won't even come on most of our shows. I mean, you know, luckily, I've got the cell phone number to nearly every member of the Congressional Black Caucus. I can hit people direct. But it is amazing how, you know, again, they will kill themselves to go run to CNN and MSNBC. And they're just continuing this continuation of ignoring independent media, which is where people are getting their information from a lot faster, quicker, and more decisive.
Yeah, we are in desperate need of a culture change as it relates to our messaging distribution. So for so long, Democrats have just relied on legacy media as our message distribution system. Meanwhile, 10 years ago, the Republicans recognized that legacy media, CNN, ABC, CBS, you know, the whole gamut of legacy media, Washington Post, New York Times, they weren't going to play ball with them. And so because those outlets were perceived as liberal media, they needed to create their own conservative media. So they did that. And so we're left with the Ben Shapiro's and Megyn Kelly's and Dan Bongino's, Daily Wire, InfoWars, the whole thing, OAN, Fox News, Newsmax. So they have all of these outlets that are avowed Republican propaganda arms. And yet what we're left with is legacy media that actually bends over backwards to prove that it's not liberal. And so if you ever wanted to see the asymmetry at play, it is a loud and proud, shameless right-wing media ecosystem, a propaganda arm for the Republican Party. And then on the left, we have liberal media that is so desperate not to be called the liberal media that they take all of their cues from the right. And that's why we're left with, 69 cover stories about Hillary's emails? And so the asymmetry is so vast here. So given that backdrop, the notion that our Democratic elected officials would say, okay, clearly we don't have any need to run to create a similar independent media ecosystem on the left, and so we'll just continue to heap all of our focus, all of our newsy breaking news pieces, all of our interviews, we'll just continue to heap those onto legacy media, even though those are the very people that we complain about, even though those are the very people who are doing the both sidesism, even though those are the very people failing to meet this moment, even though those are the very people who are paying into Trump's inaugural funds by way of settling frivolous lawsuits. We'll still continue to heap all of our goodwill and influence and validation onto those people. And that's why the asymmetry persists, because we've got elected officials in the Democratic Party who do not recognize that we needed to correct this asymmetry 10 years ago, Roland. 10 years ago. And yet we're still in a situation right now where those people are going on CNN or MSNBC talking to the same 50,000, 100,000 people who, by the way, it would be bad enough if it was just that it's a small audience, but those people are already bought in. They're already Democrats. So you're talking to people who are a shrinking number of the electorate and who aren't even persuadable. We're basically bringing sand to the beach at this point. So I guess my message to elected officials out there on the Democratic Party is if you want to reach people, we have a bigger audience in independent media, and this is where the persuadable people are.
And here's what I find to be hilarious. I saw this posted today. Fred Gutenberg posted this here. Go to my iPad. So Semaphore is hosting a summit on February 27th called Innovating to Restore Trust in News, a national summit. And you're going to love this. Those confirmed to participate so far include Megyn Kelly, CNN Worldwide Chairman and CEO Mark Thompson, NBC Universal News Group Chairman Cesar Condi, Fox News' Brett Baer, and Joe Kahn, Executive Editor of the New York Times. Really?
Yeah, I guess if we want to restore some confidence in media, then Megyn Kelly is the person to do that.
Right.
And this is the problem, because there is this whole incestuous elite, like media elite, where, okay, Megyn Kelly has worked at Fox News, and so even though she is an avowed partisan hack, like she's basically Jim Jordan with heels, even though she is just as much that, still, because she is part of this media elite, they view her as not a problem. It's the same way that everybody in the rest of the legacy media gives cover to Fox, which is a network, by the way, that had to pay almost $1 billion with a B dollars because they lied on Trump's behalf. But still, it's Fox News, and all of these people go to their parties together at night, and so there's really no reason that you would view them as a threat, because after all, you know these people. You go to cocktail parties with these people, and so they're completely fine, and they can stay in the conversation.
The thing that I think is so, when you talk about how they don't get it, I mean, here's a perfect example. And the Biden White House was awful about this. Okay, so I fought with them for 3 years. So whenever the president does the State of the Union or the first speech, the joint session of Congress, they typically do a luncheon with TV anchors. Okay.
Yeah.
And typically it's off the record. You often don't know who's invited. But the problem is that I actually was invited to them under two people. Went to 4 or 5 of them under Obama. Actually got invited 3 times by Trump folks. I made 2 of those luncheons. Never invited by the Biden people. Now, I said to them, who the hell is going to be in the room? Now, mind you, I wasn't on TV. So under Obama, I had my TV One show. I had a Sunday show. Then when I got the Daily Show, I got invited to that one. Then, of course, and then even with Trump, I got invited one before this show even started. But it was like I was sitting here, and I'm talking about hitting Karine Jean-Pierre directly, hitting Chief of Staff, hitting these folks. And in their minds, it was just, no, we're just going to talk to just the major people. And what I said is so I got invited to one with the Chief of Staff, Jeff Zients, and they had Washington Post, some other people, political around in that one. And it was a breakfast meeting with him, but wasn't no damn breakfast. They had orange juice and coffee. And I'm asking about DOJ policies. I'm asking a series of things. I'm asking questions. Everybody else at the table had no idea what the hell I was talking about. And I'm like, that's the point. The opportunity to be able to question the president. And then when they did this sort of black media thing after the State of the Union with senior officials, they would come in, talk, take some questions and leave. Then at the end of it, we did a drive-by through the Oval Office. And so Biden was there, Vice President Kamala Harris, and we took a team photo. And I said, see, this is the problem. They told us it was off the record, but then they released the photo. I was like, oh, we know what y'all did. Now, they don't take a group photo with the main anchors. Ain't no class photo there. But that's the game they played. And I kept saying to the Biden people, I said, nobody's explaining your policies to black people more than we are. What the hell are y'all doing? But they were so out of touch with new media and the world that we're now living in.
It felt like this was an instance where it was like a treat for independent media regardless of the fact that, again, new media, and I call it new media, but it's not new, nor is it any smaller, nor is it smaller than legacy media, but where digital media, independent media, again, is reaching more people than legacy media and often having more in-depth conversations. I can't tell you how many times I've done hits on TV where you got to figure out how to say what you want to say in 40-second sound bites, and then after a 4-minute hit, you're done. That's not how you can best convey information to the vast majority of this country, and the changing news preferences of people and the way that people consume media right now is a testament to that they don't want to just listen to a 5-person panel spewing off pithy little 30-second sound bites and never really digging 1 inch beneath the surface. I know that when I have the opportunity to speak to people, I ask them for 15, 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes. Sometimes I've sat down for 40 or 50 minutes with people. And that's how people want to really dig into the information that's being presented right now. It's not enough to just say, here's a little taste of something and just, you can take that and run with it and consider yourself well informed. It doesn't work like that anymore. But still, there is this mentality that, again, unless it is behind the glossy veneer of legacy media, then it doesn't really count. And I think that until and unless we disabuse ourselves of this notion that it's not legit unless it's on legacy media, then we're going to keep losing. And to the party more broadly, to their credit, I have seen something of a sea change where if for nothing else, at least the postmortem show a lot of people saying this was our big mistake. We didn't take independent media seriously. Now, unfortunately, we're in a situation where the only way we actually get to put that into practice is from this wilderness that we find ourselves in.
What do you say to progressives, liberals, Democrats, whatever label they want to use, who are depressed, disenchanted, mad, upset, want to check out, want to move out of the country, they've given up, they've lost hope? What are you actually saying to them?
I would say that the only thing worse than seeing Donald Trump run roughshod over our government and our democracy is seeing Donald Trump run roughshod over our government and our democracy and us offering no pushback. We can't just sit down, throw our hands up, and turn a blind eye to all of this stuff, because that is giving people who want to do the most harm to us exactly what they want. Do not reward these people by giving them exactly what they want. We were in a very similar situation, although they were a little more chaotic in the first administration. But we were in a similar situation where Trump had full control of government back in 2017, and within 2 years, we would see Democrats win the House by the biggest margin in modern American history. And so we are in a situation where, again, there's a lot of new people watching politics right now who don't remember the chaos that envelops this country when Trump and Republicans are running things. And they will see that chaos and they will react negatively to that chaos. And so we have the opportunity right now, as we head toward midterms, to fix a lot of the wrongs that we've made. And I don't just mean from a messaging perspective. I mean from the elected's perspective too, in terms of where they get their information out. All of it counts. But we have the opportunity to take advantage of this moment, start campaigning right now, start messaging effectively right now, start fixing the wrongs from the last 4 years right now, and figure out the best way to basically leverage the moment that we've got, which is we're heading into an era of uncertainty and chaos and dysfunction. We know that Americans are going to react negatively to it. We've seen it happen before, and figure out how to best optimize as we head toward November 2026.
Questions from our panel. Michael, you're first.
All right, Brian. Today, Representative Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Leader and Congressional Black Caucus Chair Yvette Clarke held a press conference, and they talked about Trump's illegal Republican funding freeze, as well as the D.C. plane crash and him blaming DEI. And one of the things Representative Hakeem Jeffries talked about is how they weren't going to chase every crazy thing that Trump does, but they were going to go after the big things, okay? Because we know he's done at least 300 executive orders since he's been in office. What are one or two tips you can give on how Democrats can effectively fight back and not chase every little thing like buying Greenland or something like that?
Right. I think that's a great question, and that is going to be the whole ballgame moving forward. So, for example, I think you can actually point to the sum of all of the things we're seeing right now, whether it's complaining about DEI as if that's some justification for the plane crash, whether it's freeing these January 6th insurrectionists, whether it's these efforts to buy Greenland, to your exact point, all of it as in total, and say, Donald Trump took office amid promises to lower costs, to get the cost of groceries down, of rent down, of housing down, of eggs down. He's had time to do all this bullshit. He's had time to sign all of these executive orders. He's had time to make overtures to these countries. He's had time to threaten to invade. He's had time to try and impose these tariffs. All this time to do stuff. He's had time to watch Andy Ogles submit a constitutional amendment to get him to run a third term. And yet, what has he done to actually help you? What has he done to actually make sure he can bring the cost down, which was the exact thing that he ran for office on heading into this election? He has not lifted a finger for any of the people who he's actually promised to help. And I think that's the thing that we have to drill down on. And so we can actually use all of these crazy examples, not to focus our attention on each one individually, but to point to them as a sum total and say, if he's had time to do all of these things that, by the way, are going to have no beneficial impact on your life, that are not going to bring the cost down, why can't he actually do the one thing that he promised you when he was trying to get your vote?
Derek.
Okay. Brian, appreciate the work, and I follow you on social media. My question to you, I'm right here in Georgia, a state legislator, and it's hard for us to cut through the whole misinformation and disinformation. What one or two things that you can advise someone such as myself to help deal with this whole misinformation and disinformation while we continue to fact check the convicted felon?
It's the whole ballgame right now. I've maintained that for years now, Democrats could do everything under the sun, and if we don't have a way to actually message our victories or the truth to people, then it doesn't matter what we do in office, because the fact is the American people are going to know any better. Misinformation and disinformation is the whole ballgame right now. And so I think we have to learn from our mistakes in the past. When we see something happen, for example, if you look at this plane crash, and the plane crash happened, everybody rightly stayed quiet as we waited for some accurate information to come out. And the second Donald Trump gets in front of a microphone, he, of course, blames Joe Biden. He blames Pete Buttigieg. He blames Democrats. He blames the 2020 election. He blames DEI. And then it's off to the races. Then all the right-wing media ecosystem gets their cues from him, and they say, you're right, it was DEI. We got to get rid of DEI. That's the problem. And I think we have to learn this lesson, that when we leave a vacuum, Republicans will fill it with disinformation. And so there are no instances where we can just defer to the norms of the past. We have to immediately get out in front of this stuff and tell the truth. And so in this case, if Trump wants to blame DEI, and that's going to be the lasting impression that anybody consumes right-wing media gets, then we have to push back and say, you want to talk about this plane crash? On January 20th, Donald Trump and Elon Musk pushed out the FAA administrator. They never bothered naming a replacement. Also on January 20th, Trump implemented a federal hiring freeze that included air traffic controllers. On January 21st, Trump disbanded the Aviation Security Advisory Committee. On January 21st, he fired the TSA director. On January 22nd, his White House posted a notice on their website saying Donald J. Trump ends DEI madness and restores excellence and safety within the Federal Aviation Administration. So, and 1 week following that, we had the first commercial airline crash in 16 years. So we have to get out in front of this stuff and put accurate information into the zeitgeist, because we have to know by now that no one is going to sit idly by on the right and just wait for accurate information. They're going to inject their agenda into it. That agenda is most likely going to include throwing black people and brown people under the bus, because that is their boogeyman of the moment. And so we have to move quickly, and we have to be relentless in getting these messages out.
Matt?
Yeah, so I hate when I have to go after Derek and Michael because they steal my questions. But, my question is a little bit an offshoot of Derek's. And here's the question, Brian. So I think a lot of times when we're talking about independent media, I think you've alluded to this. There's this implication that independent media is just not as valuable or not as credible, right, as legacy media. So my question for you is, what advice do you have on how people can not only vet the channels that are the independent channels that they're watching, but make sure that what they're getting, to Derek's point, is not misinformation? Because the issue is, a viewership does not necessarily correlate to credibility, right? You can have 1 million followers and be spewing complete BS. So what advice do you have for how people can make sure that they're getting credible information from the independent sources that they're following?
Yeah, that's such an important question right now, as we've seen media literacy kind of descend more and more and more, which makes sense because there's so much declining trust in other outlets. I think what we have to do right now is make sure that you have a wide media diet and that you're checking everything that you're watching with other sources. And eventually, if you're seeing the same things repeated over and over again, then you'll know if someone's being accurate. If something seems like an outlier, be willing to check those stuff. And by the way, I know that I kind of shit on legacy media a lot, but the reporting that we see coming out of New York Times and Washington Post and NBC and the straight news reporters that are doing the work are still important in our ecosystem. Are they going to meet the moment with regard to fighting back against these partisan Republican outlets? No, but that's not their job either. It's our job in independent media to be able to give our perspective on things. So I think it's important to use a lot of these outlets to cross-reference a lot of what you're hearing on independent media. Make sure to have a vast diet of independent media outlets to cross-reference so that you make sure that what you're getting is good. And this way you can build up sources that you trust over time. But I think the onus is on people to make sure that that they're not just blindly accepting whatever they see or read on the internet, because even though it might not be malicious, the reality is that we have to all be really careful about what we read. And it happens to me too, where I get caught in some cycle of reading something, and unless I'm able to check it against some of these legacy media sources and against other folks who I've come to trust, then I don't know that I can really lean on something yet. But I do think it's important that in this media environment that we make sure not to blindly trust something if we read it one time from some random dude on the internet.
I dare say, Brian, that I think our biggest job, and it's a lot and it's difficult, is to completely and unapologetically at every turn dispel the constant lies coming from these people. They lie with impunity. They lie about lies. And that's what they do. And I think what happens is a lot of people go, man, it's just so much. I mean, it's just an onslaught of lies. And that's by design. He purposely coined fake news and pushed it because he wanted to discredit any criticism of him.
I mean, it's Steve Bannon's model of flooding the zone with shit. They know exactly what they're doing. This may seem like chaos and pandemonium, but in reality, this is a purposeful strategy where they make sure to hit you with a barrage of so much that you don't know which way to look. The point is to distract us. So I think, you and I had been speaking about this earlier, but the importance of making sure where to focus our attention is just as important as the information coming out.
Well, it's a lot that is going on, and I agree. Michael made the point with Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Yeah, you don't respond to everything, but there are some things that you do respond to. And I felt that yesterday, the reason I spent so much time yesterday and today with those attacks on the disabled, on DEI, because really what they are trying to suggest, and they're very clear with it, is that one, when they say DEI, they really mean black people.
Correct.
But two, what they also are saying is white women, go sit your ass down as well. All we want are compliant white women. And so they are absolutely taking this manly, heterosexual, white male only philosophy, and that's what's driving their entire narrative. And people don't understand the depths of this and really how locked and loaded they are when it comes to it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. But I do look. I'm grateful that you've been on this. You've been beating this drum for a long time. You seem to be leading the independent media space and saying a lot of the things that you've in a lot of the folks in the independent media space finally learning the things that you've been saying for a while now. So I'm glad that we have you beating this drum and being such an important voice in this independent media space.
And Brian, real quick, a group of us have come together with under the banner of Chorus. So just share with people what that means and how critical that is in this moment.
Yeah, so Chorus is kind of an incubator that we're creating right now so that we can support the next generation of and this current generation of democratic voices, of content creators, of influencers, and we're doing messaging meetings, and this way we can work more deliberately and strategically focus our messaging, which I think is, to the point we've been speaking about throughout the entirety of this interview. That's the whole ball game right now, is knowing where to focus our attention. So we are working on we're working on making Chorus a little bit bigger right now and getting some newer creators, some younger creators, smaller creators in the mix so that we can support them and again build up this next generation, this next crop of democratic voices.
And as I said, there are people who are democratic voices, who are progressive voices, who are liberal voices, or who are I'll make it clear, I don't take any of those labels. I'm African American. That's what I focus on. And so it's people who want to speak truth to what's going on and who is challenging, frankly, the white nationalist perspective emanating from Trump's Republican Party.
Yeah, and I think maybe the label, maybe the more appropriate label is pro-democracy these days, especially in light of what Trump is doing to the federal government.
Absolutely. Brian, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Roland.
Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. You heard what we just talked about there. Folks, I can't reiterate this enough. Listen to me clearly. I cannot reiterate this enough. When you've got technology companies running scared, when you've got legacy media not doing their job, when you've got black-owned media that is disintegrated, now is more than ever for us to have independent media that cares about the truth, that is willing to say what needs to be said. So when you support Roland Martin Unfiltered, this show, when you support the Black Star Network, you're not just supporting me, you're supporting the other shows. Our goal is to add 2 more shows this year. We want additional shows. We want more weekly and daily shows because we want to be able to speak truth to power. We want to be able to say what is necessary where other people are scared. And when you are scared, when you're looking over your shoulder, oh my God, that advertising contract is not going to come in. Well, guess what? A lot of these major ad agencies, they're not even supporting us anyway. In 6 years of doing this show, Group M hasn't done a damn thing with us. Publicis hasn't done anything with us. You've got Horizon, you've got all of these folks, they haven't done jack. And so we are calling it like we see it, and we're speaking truth. And unlike some of these other so-called progressives and people who believe in truth, I'm not running around trying to kiss MAGA ass and kiss Trump's ass. I won't be going to Mar-a-Lago, not for a damn thing. And so this is about us being able to speak truth. So when you support this show and this network with your resources, that is exactly what is happening, because we are trying to build something that is bigger and broader, and actually it has the courage to say what needs to be said, even when it makes other folk uncomfortable. If you want to contribute giving Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. This is it right here. And if you are listening, simply go to blackstarnetwork.com to check it out. Also, if you want to see your check and money order, some of y'all old school, we understand that. See your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And again, folks, we've got some 4 million social media followers. If only 20,000 of our fans contribute at least $50 each, which comes out to $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day, that's $1 million that allows us to be able to continue to build, to add these shows and do the work that's required. So your support is needed. So please join our Bring the Funk fan club today if you've not already joined. If you have given to us in the past, please renew your commitment, because it's important that we support Black-owned media, because Black-owned media matters.